Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Say Report. I'm your host, Devon Decker, and joining me, my host companion, Sejan Sarowick. Sejan?
Devon, my man, the stars are out, and somebody done dropped them all over the sidewalk. The Hollywood sidewalk stars, whatever the hell that
the Hollywood Walk of Fame?
Well, they've done their announcements for 2023. Did you see this?
No, I did not see this.
It's a pretty decent list.
Before we share the names, because I think it's good, I have a correction for something that I talked about last week. And what you're talking about seems like a fun thing, and I kind of want to get all the negativity out of the way early so we can kick off the Say Report Summer Fun, more fun edition.
Stop my fun thing short completely and then talk about this whatever's going to be depressing.
It's not well, it's a little bit depressing. I'll try to wrap it all together so that we get through it quickly. Basically, last week on the Say Report, we talked about Wings at length, and I said that Alex Lambert's character was played by Farrah Fowles. And that's just not wrong. I think that a little bit of the Big Bang Theory, Mayim Bialik's character of Amy Farrah Fowler, got in there, and that's what came out my mouth. But it's actually Farrah Forks who played Alex Lambert for 2 seasons. Not just the 1 season, as I also said last week, but I feel like I can be forgiven for that, mostly because on Paramount Plus, only half of season 4 and half of season 5 are available, so I watched through it in 1 day and just assumed that it was 1 season.
We live in the time of binging. Trying to break things up by series and seasons anymore is impossible. Our brains just can't. We've lost that capacity.
But it does speak to why I had no idea who Alex Lambert was until I started watching reruns of the show, because it was the 2 seasons when we were like living at my grandmother's house who didn't have cable while we were waiting for our house in Coventry to be built. And then the last thing, and this is the sad part about it, is that we actually lost Farrah Forks this year in February. So I just wanted to say rest in peace. She was great on that show. A lot of people didn't like her character, but it was a strong female character in a time where you weren't really seeing those in the television landscape. And I don't know why she separated from Wings. I didn't want to look into that until I'm finished with the show. But I did want to give her her propers, especially if I got let it show. She died at 54. That's young, and it's sad. And I wanted to make sure that I actually gave her name properly.
Yeah, no, that was good to make sure that we're staying on top of our own bullshit.
Yeah.
And obviously, if you ever catch us in our bullshit, please don't be afraid to tell us.
Yeah, we will own up to it right there. And then also, I talked about the episode with Roy, where he has his birthday party. It's actually season 7, episode 13. And it turns out that it's the completion of the whole arc with his son coming out as gay in the season 2 episode. And apparently they've been estranged for those 5 seasons. And he comes back to surprise his father for his birthday, only for things to not go so hot. I mean, it all gets resolved at the end, but the initial is, I have no son.
Yeah, great.
Right? So, like, still sort of the negative bit there. But I did want to share those things, because Wings, I love Wings, and I really enjoy it, and I've really loved the people who've come out since we talked about Wings being like, I'm a closeted Wings fan, too. We've also got a couple, I used to hate Wings because it meant all the good shows were over comments. But you know, it's an important part of the culture of television, Wings. It was part of the must-see TV on Thursdays.
Well, and more importantly, it's very emblematic of a type of television that you and I don't often talk about, and it's because nobody does. It was that filler TV show that was so inoffensive that people kind of don't really have much of a hold to it anymore, right? Like, Devon rewatching it for the probably 1000th time in his life, and me having memories of it is not emblematic of like the larger picture of where Wings is in the culture, right? People aren't going to fucking like Hot Topic and Newberry Comics and buying Wings t-shirts, right?
Right, but all of that said, without a show like Wings, we wouldn't have like pillars of the television landscape like Steven Weber and Tim Daly, who that was where people discovered them. And along that same way, we wouldn't have Tony Shalhoub going on to be Monk. We wouldn't have Thomas Hayden Church going on to win Oscars. And also piss off Peter Parker because sand just gets everywhere. It's coarse and hard. And
Yeah, no, I mean, it's that thing about mid-tier television, mid-tier entertainment that we've lost in the last 20 years. It feels like, right? Like look at video games. It's either a AAA game or it's an indie, and that is slowly starting to kind of reverse. And the same went for movies, right? Like there's no such thing as like a mid-tier film anymore. Either you have to be the AAA blockbuster success, or like you die on the vine, right? Like and then there's always the cult followings that smaller films always end up finding, but there's no in between anymore, right? And television's the same way. That like we were so caught up in the golden age of television that we've kind of we've hit a little bit of a lull, and things are kind of more above mediocre. A couple of shining spots here and there, but mostly stuff is just tolerable at the moment. And somehow people think that TV's dead, and it's just like, no, it doesn't work like that. And we got to remember that exact same thing when we talk about streaming and what's going on in streaming services. Everybody's ready to count Netflix out, which, as they've proven time and time again, never do. Like, I'm not saying that they're doing gangbusters right now, but it's exactly this. They are in a pretty solid, maintainable state at the moment, as long as they don't try anything too crazy that makes them go under, or they don't completely shit the bed on something, which could happen any day. But that's this like mid-tier level of entertainment that we used to just have just available to us, and was good because it was something to fill the time. Otherwise, like, we've kind of lost respect for that in the last like 30 years since Wings, and that's a shame.
What I would say is we've lost more for the respect angle is nice, because that mid-tier stuff is still out there, but instead of getting the chance to go on for more than one season, you get like a one season mid-season replacement that might be good, might have some heart. How We Roll is probably the one that I would first point to as emblematic of this, because like it was a pretty good show, and like I find myself missing it. Like, I'm upset that there's not going to be new episodes of that show. Yeah. But before, in the early 90s, How We Roll, it would probably get that second season based on the numbers that it had. And then you'd have that chance for it to, find its footing, establish where it wants to go. Wings, if Wings had premiered right now in 2022, it would be 6 episodes and it would be done. Same with Seinfeld. I mean, Seinfeld premiering in '89. If the head of NBC didn't like the show, we would have only had the 5 seasons in that first episode of the 5 episodes in the first season of Seinfeld.
Yeah,
like that was one that, no, I like this show, so I'm going to keep putting it on my network.
Yeah, I mean, like that's just it. Like I pointed out earlier, these kinds of shows still helped cultivate some of the best entertainers eventually, and it's where writers cut their teeth. It's where even people behind the scenes, like the idea that we've talked about this with Pamela Fryman, right? And the number of failed pilots and failed shows that Pamela Fryman has had on her on her resume, but only to serve to allow her to be in these places to do things like How I Met Your Mother, like literal television changing series, right? Mm-hmm. So there just isn't that isn't celebrated anymore. There isn't room for that for people anymore, and that sucks.
Yeah, we live in a world of extremes.
Yeah,
like Billy Joel. Right, so one other negative thing, and then I would love to see what's on the top of your list for the stars that are falling in Hollywood. Mm-hmm. That the good type of falling, not the bad type of falling, is Family Feud. I was recently reminded of, I have a real issue with one aspect of Family Feud. I have issues with the show Family Feud, but there's one thing that really just sticks in my craw, gets under my skin, and it's one of those things that it only bothers me when it happens. It's not like a constant.
Of how dirty Steve Harvey's allowed that show to get?
I mean, the fact that Family Feud now exists only to generate content on YouTube. Like up, down, left, right. And the worst part is that Family Feud has become self-aware regarding it. So yes. Now that seems to be the goal of Steve Harvey. The second he added the catchphrase, "Yo ass on YouTube," to his repertoire, that was sort of like a big decline moment for Family Feud.
Some days I don't really have an opinion about Steve Harvey, and then there are days when I do, and that opinion is usually, what a hypocritical asshole.
Yup.
Oh,
I mean, man. That's pretty much my base level for Steve Harvey. But also, Steve Harvey is somebody that as a kid, he meant a lot to me because of the Steve Harvey show on the WB.
Well, and let's like Family Feud is not all Steve Harvey does anymore, right? I mean,
right.
and I don't just mean like the Steve Harvey show that he also has. Is that talk show even still on?
I think that's over, and I know he did Judge Steve Harvey to follow that up, and I believe that's over too.
I mean behind the scenes, like he does a lot of work in bringing up other artists and things like that. Like the guy does a lot of that kind of work. It's just like it's all personal life with the ways in which like some of the shit that he has done and said in the world is just like so upsetting. And then like taking Family Feud and trying to on one side of his career trying to promote the whole like Christian whatever, I don't know what sect he specifically is, but that whole like religious angle that he carries, and like it has led to a lot of issues with the ways in which he's been like, you know, the nuclear family bullshit that comes out of all those guys' mouth. That asshole on one end, then to see him then taking Family Feud and turning it into the raunchy meme factory that it has become is just gross.
I mean, the entertainment industry.
This is a joke when I first said it, but like let's get down to brass tacks. This is how I actually feel about the Family Feud.
Yeah, you really boiled into the truth there. We got through all the layers to determine how you feel about Family Feud at your core. And that's good. So, but what I have a problem with, where I draw true umbrage with Family Feud is, if anybody is unfamiliar with the game Family Feud, it is essentially 100 people are asked a question, and their top answers are put up on a board, and then the two families who are feuding try to guess as many of those answers as possible. If you're unable to guess all of the available answers, and it can range from 4 to 8, those are usually the choices that are up there, then your family continues. But if you're unable to, and the other family is able to guess any of the remaining answers that are up on the board, they get to claim all of the points that you earned during that round, and then we go to the next round of play.
Yeah, it makes for daring television, because just because somebody gets a lot of points on an answer does not necessarily mean they're theirs yet, right? And so there's the opportunity for the entire fate of the game to change in just a couple of moves.
Yeah. You can suck at Family Feud the whole game and still be the person going to the final round of Family Feud. Fast money is what that's called. The goal,
which bad gameplay, but good television.
Yeah, it's good television, exactly. And the families get to be like eccentric, and you're really watching more to meet this family in 22 minutes. It's an interesting thing. But Family Feud has always kind of been like a weird thing, like Richard Dawson just going full on tongue kiss with wives and daughters.
Yeah. No, the raunchiness of Family Feud has always been there. You're not wrong, but it is the idea that they are leaning into it specifically to hit social media in a way nowadays that couldn't have existed before. But I still think it's gross now, so I'm not gonna be like, well, they would have done this all along if they could have. That just makes it worse.
Yeah, that makes it worse. The fact that if they had access to YouTube in the 70s, they would have been doing this.
Can you imagine social media at the time when we were in the middle of like the civil rights movement? Like, oh my God, no thank. Okay,
I mean, we kind of are there, aren't we? Don't we have social?
Yeah, that's true.
Isn't there a civil rights movement going on while we have social media? Aren't we kind of just living in 1976 again? I don't know. I'm just running up that hill, Sejan. Kate Bush.
Cute.
But the part that I have a problem with, so the goal of Family Feud in the original rounds is to get 300 points, and that's where you go to fast money, where if you're able to get 200 total points between two members of the family, you win $20,000. And also they've added the new wrinkle that if you're able to go through 5 games winning the initial round, you go home with a brand new car. That's Family Feud for you. Where my umbrage, where my anger, where my frustration lies is every round of Family Feud starts with a face-off. And it is one member from each family goes up, they sit at the buzzer, and the host, now currently Steve Harvey, though there has been 7 different hosts of Family Feud in America, let alone the international versions.
Tragic story.
Poor Richard Karn and the guy from Seinfeld. I can't think of his real name. But not Mr. Littman. I can't think of his name right now. I've met him in person because he is at all of the conventions all of the time. John Flannery? Is that his name? I don't know. You could look it up if you want. Sejan, specifically. I'm not telling the audience, go do homework. But so currently Steve Harvey, he will read out the question, and one team buzzes in and they give an answer, and if that answer is on the board, then they get credit for that. If it's the top answer, then their family is asked if they want to pass or play. But if it's any of the other 8 possible answers up there, the other team gets the chance to give an answer and see if they can get an answer higher than the one that the original family that buzzed in gets, to give their team the chance to pass or play. Is this all making sense right now?
So far, yep.
John O'Hurley is his name. He played the clothing guy, and I can't think of the name of the one that Elaine worked for.
Yeah, Elaine's boss.
Peterman.
Peterman.
Yeah. So John O'Hurley is his name. It just came to me. But where I have a problem with Family Feud is, so Sejan and I are sitting at the dais, right? And the question is, name something that gets worse as it ages. So I ring in and I say spouse. And spouse turns over as the number 2 answer, with 40 people saying spouse. Also, that really says a lot about those 40 people who were polled.
Yeah.
For this question. So now, see, because I got the number 2 answer, Sejan is asked and given the option and given the chance to get the number 1 answer on the board. So Sejan is now asked the same question, and Sejan says food. And the first answer turns over, it's food, but food also was given by 40 members who were polled this question. Who do you think gets the option to pass or play in this scenario?
I mean, it has to, just by the nature of play, because it has to be the second person, right? Like,
it should. I believe that it should be the second person, right?
Right.
But the rules of Family Feud state, because both the number 1 and the number 2 answer had the same number of responses, the original family that buzzed in and gave the answer gets the choice to pass or play for that.
I mean, tie goes to the defender is not an unusual rule in games. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, it's not.
I get that tie,
right?
Yeah.
Because it's a tie, it has to be a compromise. But
I don't think it's a tie. Personally, I don't think it's a tie, because the other team, was given the option to answer the answer that is higher than the one that has turned over, right? And they did that. They found the answer that was the number 1 answer on the board, right? There were 6 other answers that they could have given, but they gave the one that was number 1. Now, both of them has 40, but, like, it's not an alphabetical thing, right? It's not that because I said spouse, that was 2 and food is 1 for alphabetical reasons, because I have seen it. I have been following this. Every time it happens, it gets my dander up, but it, like, finally got to this breaking point where I'm like, I need to just talk about it so I don't worry about it anymore.
So the question that I have about this, right, is it all comes down to the truth of the whole survey. Because on the one hand, if you look at it as we literally asked 100 people in this audience, here are the answers at 1 for 1, then yeah, this is a really, like, then what dictates what goes first on the board, right? Like, what at that point, who are they playing against? Are they playing against the audience, which is always kind of the intended narrative of Family Feud, or are they playing against the board, which becomes a whole other kind of game, because, like, how the hell are you supposed to know anyways? Or is the scenario that we polled the entire audience, which is probably closer to something like 400, and then we did the math out to get percentages? Because in that case, you could end up with a 40% 0.5 and a 40% 0.7, and so that's the one that goes above it. Technically, it's the number 1 answer, but as it appears on the board, they both get labeled. Well, in that case, it would be 41, but you get what I mean, right? Like,
well, they would actually both be 41, but it's okay. I understand.
That's what I'm saying. They would both be 41. But it's the same problem, right? But anyway, but is it a true 100 people were polled for this question? So this is a true number of 40 to 40, or is it that we polled a certain number of people and then we transitioned it all into percentages? So this is what it would appear as if we asked 100 people, and so then it becomes a whole other fucking conversation there about, like, how many people did they truly ask, and what is a sample size for Family Feud, and just does that need to truly be, like, put out there just for the sake of the game, or do we just keep pretending that it was 100 people?
So then my issue more stems from the fact that in the olden days, right, back when it was Richard Dawson who was hosting Family Feud, the board was a physical object that existed in the room, right? So some poor PA was slotting in the answers and then they were turning over. Now the board is computerized. So Food and Spouse, one of them doesn't have to be 1 and one of them doesn't have to be 2. They can both exist as 1 and 2 simultaneously.
So for drama's sake, are they making it 2? Yeah.
Yeah, are they making it 2 so that the other team can guess? But then you guess the right answer, we've eliminated 80% of the answers, right?
It's weird because again, it doesn't seem like, even in that case, it doesn't seem like they're playing by obscure rules. The idea being like, well, draw to match at that point.
Yeah.
You can match this number because this one was a high number. Now, and they're basically saying to you then, like, you can, or they're not saying to you then, this was one of the highest answers, but we in fact got a second one. If you can guess that second one, like, you
still don't get to play.
Yeah, you still don't get to play, which is weird.
You just get to eliminate another high value answer.
Right. And like that becomes a whole other way that it could be played. But as you're saying, that's not how it's presented, right? It is presented as a 1 and a 2, as like a hierarchy of answers amongst the audience.
Right. And there has to be some bias there, right?
And they have control over it now that it's a digital board. Yeah.
Yeah. Or if that's the case and they say spouse, right? Turn that over for 1, and then that team is given the option to pass or play.
Right.
And then they just play the game normally. It's such a manufactured moment, and it annoys me every time.
Especially because of what you're pointing out, or what we've already pointed out about the idea that it's become just this like YouTube like video grab bag, right? Like, you can see how the same attitude that would go to, hey, let's get as many dirty answers on the board as possible, could also then be applied to, oh, and let's judge up a little drama by if they guess the top answer, we'll slot it to number 2 instead and see what happens. And then you have to start questioning the truth of any of it, right? Like, did they actually poll anybody in the audience? Or if they did, are these the actual numbers, or are these just the numbers as they would be better served for the comedy of the bit that they're now creating, right?
Yes.
At what point is it no longer a game show and just like a scripted experience that maybe the contestants aren't aware they're in?
There's also the issue that like food is generally like a catch-all term, and sometimes a person will answer something that like is food adjacent but be given credit for food, or other times they'll say like cereal and they mean that specifically as like something you eat with a spoon and it'll turn over with food. It's such a manufactured thing, and it's really become a problem. I mean, those are terrible examples, but I'm just saying that, like...
I'm thinking comparing this to the freaking Jeopardy audience that wouldn't put up with shit, like, if they're like, well, he didn't really raise his voice at the end of that comment, so was it really a question? It's just like, okay.
Oh, my God. Well, I mean, like, we talk about the Jeopardy audience, right? I don't want to go, like, too deep into it. The episode of Jeopardy on Friday... the answer to Final Jeopardy, spoilers for a Jeopardy that's already happened, was Harriet Tubman, and the woman who was in the lead the entire game, like that whole thing, it looked like she wrote out Harriet Tubman, like that's what it looked like it was written out, and then Mayim Bialik goes, it looks like you were going for Harriet Tubman, but you didn't get a chance to finish, so she got it wrong, and it launched 1,000 ships on Twitter. Of people being like, well, if you put lines between the letters, Harriet Tubman is written out. Is it not complete because she didn't put a question mark at the end? Is the question mark required for it to be a proper answer?
Yeah, exactly. Meanwhile, the Family Feud audience is just like just shoving popcorn down their gob and just having a good old time with it.
Just having a good time with it. It's crazy. The last thing on Jeopardy, and this is I'd like to hear your opinion on it, and then we will get to fun stuff. I promise people. This 25-minute introduction on like negativity is just to purge it all before we start the summer of fun at the Save Report. Do you think that they should be using keyboards in 2022? Like, is the light pen dead?
I think no, I don't think keyboards, because there's a lot going on there that in terms of what can and can't be done with a keyboard versus the pen, and I think having that be a requirement. Now, that being said, making it accessible for maybe different players, maybe it should be. I don't know. There's just something about the handwritten nature of Jeopardy answers that feels really good. Let me put it this way. When some smartass is on that streak, winning like $60,000 this episode and has been winning for the last 3, and then the final Jeopardy comes up and his handwriting looks like a 3-year-old threw a crayon at the wall, I feel a little bit better about myself.
I understand that. The big one that people have been citing is Brad. I can't think of his last name right now, and I don't really feel bad about that. I'm not like a Jeopardy super fan, but the most winning player in Jeopardy history, the guy who won $2 million in the Tournament of Champions.
Right.
The Tournament of Champions. Like it was all champions from Tournaments of Champions coming together to compete.
This sounds like a Taskmaster episode.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry. There is the one that he won a Final Jeopardy. He had written down Malta, and Malta is completely legible, and then he crossed it out and apparently wrote Crete, like the island of Crete, and it just looks like a scribble. And that the fact that he would go on to win $2 million on the back of that, and this woman who, like, it looks like you wrote out Harriet Tubman, but
yeah.
No.
Well, and then how much of that is on Bialik in that moment to make that call, or is she just getting fed whatever the producers
so
are
here's
saying,
the
right?
worst part is the contestant, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, this is the thing. Mayim goes, it looks like you were going for Harriet Tubman, but you didn't quite finish in time. The contestant nodded in the affirmative, and I'm like, why the fuck would you do that? Why would you agree with her?
It had to be the question mark. That's the only reasonable answer, is that they knew then and there that they didn't put the punctuation, wasn't a form of the question, so therefore they don't get it. That has to be it.
I imagine so, but there's no straight answer. I haven't found anything from Jeopardy weighing in, just a bunch of Jeopardy fans. And it was just one of those moments where this feels like an integrity moment in the game. In a season that's sort of been plagued by integrity moments, like there's a lot of it's like Mayim Bialik, she's learning the job, right? I don't know if she's going to continue as the host or anything like that, but like you do need to give her the benefit of the doubt that she hadn't been hosting Jeopardy for 37 years.
Yeah.
So this is new to her. But the way that she pauses to confirm with the judges when the answer isn't exactly what is written on the card for her is so noticeable and breaks up the flow of watching a game of Jeopardy in a way that is just, it's annoying. Like,
yeah, it's unnatural because we're so used to what Trebek had been doing for years, and that was just going, with it. Like he knew. Also, he probably had. I mean, think about it this way: it's like a baseball player getting signals from their third base coach, right?
Yeah.
And like when you're in little league, it's like the base coach usually has to just stand there and do the freaking chicken dance for the kid to even pay attention, then give him the sign. But by the time you get to the majors, those guys are out there giving signs, and you don't even realize it. Guy's picking his nose for 5 minutes, and what you didn't realize is he just told the last 3 guys to steal. Like
yeah,
it's crazy.
That shorthand isn't there. Yeah.
Exactly, right? So you need to give her the time to kind of develop that kind of skill to do exactly what she's doing, but do it in a smoother way. That's all.
And I think the last thing that is a problem with that is it's not just Mayim, because she's doing other projects. You have Ken Jennings come in sometimes to host,
mm-hmm.
and you don't see any of those growing pains with him. So then there's that whole group of people like, well, then why, like, what is happening here? It's not like she exists in a vacuum and she's learning. There is somebody else who also didn't host Jeopardy for 37 years who comes in, and it's almost effortless to watch him do it. And that's not really fair to what Mayim Bialik is doing. And that's...
Yeah, I mean, part of it is that for the little that I've seen of Ken Jennings, he's just hosting Jeopardy as Jeopardy has always been hosted. Yeah. Whereas, like, Bialik is making an attempt to be the host of a show as if it is her show to host. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, there's a whole different mindset there. Yeah, it's wild.
It's crazy stuff. But that's it. So that's some of the negative stuff that's rattling around our brains. Sejin, you now have the floor for the Hollywood Walk of Fame. I'm excited.
No, so I'm not actually really familiar with how this works. First of all, like, it's one of those things that is I've always known about my whole life, right? It's cartoons and shit reference it all the time and blah blah blah. I never really thought about like the mechanics or the politics, I guess, that go on behind it. And apparently, there's a lot, and they're all nonsense. This is not to take away from anybody that just got nominated this year, but like apparently it's just it's just a clusterfuck of just like tourist trap bullshit of just like who can we get on there that people will want to come to LA to see. Right. But with that in mind, like this year, there's some pretty wild names on the list that like I was not aware. Like, for instance, when somebody is known for both television and film, how do they determine what category they go into? And does it matter what category they go into? Does their star look different if they're on for TV as opposed to film?
Can they go into two categories?
Right. Like so can somebody have multiple stars, right, on the walk? So
yeah, is Jennifer Hudson now eligible for 4 different stars with her EGOT?
So let me let me give you one let me give you one really big hint, because I do think you could probably guess a couple of things. But if I told you that I feel like they finally watched the Fast and the Furious series this year,
Paul Walker.
So that was the gimme. There is a posthumous Paul Walker, but I will tell you there is also one other person from that series that is getting a motion picture star on the Walk of Fame.
Vin Diesel?
No.
Michelle Rodriguez?
Nope.
Jamie Brewster?
Nope.
Oh, jeez. Tyrone Gibson?
Nope.
Oh, thank God. Because if it were Tyrone Gibson, I'd be very mad at myself. Because, he saved my life. And I've been thinking about that a lot lately.
This actor's done more work than Fast and the Furious, but, like, to my knowledge, this has really kind of been his bread and butter as far as the acting side of his career goes.
The Rock? Dwayne Johnson?
Why would that? No.
That'd be crazy. But I'm trying to think of, like, is it Luda? Chris Bridges?
Yeah, Chris Bridges is getting one. Ludacris specifically. This is how they name him. I don't know if that's what his star is going to say. Because, again, he's getting in as a motion picture star. He's
in Saving Private Ryan, though.
He's in a ton of stuff. He's in a couple of Guy Ritchie ones as well. I think he's in Rocky. Well, I know he's in Rock and Rolla. There's some great work that he's done. Yeah, no, that's what I mean. It's like it's more than that. It's more than Fast and Furious. But the fact that he is named alongside Paul Walker as being put in. But now
not only did they finally watch Fast and the Furious, it feels like they're like, we'll watch Too Fast, Too Furious, and if Too Fast, Too Furious is demonstrative of how good Paul Walker can be, then we'll give him the star. And then while they're watching Too Fast, Too Furious, which, honest engine right here, that's a terrible phrase. I'm so sorry. Handheld, swearing on my own grave here, and Too Fast, Too Furious is a great freaking movie.
You're like, how can I pad this out to really kind of soften the blow to what I'm about to say? Because
also, I said just a terrible thing because I've been watching terrible shows.
Oh yeah,
that like use that, and I'm like, oh, that's a harsh phrase.
No. Yeah. You're just. I was referring to recalling Fast and the Furious or Too Fast, Too Furious, your favorite one of the series.
My favorite one. My favorite one of the series might actually be Tokyo Drift. Because it's so ingenious. It's so smart, Tokyo Drift. And it's a movie that doesn't have any of the people from before. You don't have a Vin Diesel. You don't have a Paul Walker to hang your hat on with Tokyo Drift. And fact that Lucas Black is able to carry that film the way that he does, and then for it to be sort of the hub that the next 3 movies plug into...
Yeah,
for
it's
emotional
wild.
heart is insane. But the fact that Tokyo Drift is essentially the Karate Kid Part 2 with race cars, street race cars, is incredible to me.
So there were a couple of other names.
Sorry, Too Fast and Furious is a great movie. Devon Aoki, high five.
So Bill Pullman is on the list. Uma Thurman. The big reason I even heard about this is because John Waters is getting recognized, and so a lot of John Waters fans, like being really proud of that. But there's one last name in the motion pictures, and it is not weird until you see the number 1 in the television, because the number 1 in motion picture is the last one in motion picture listed here is Vince Vaughn. Cool.
Right?
Yep. Number one for television, Jon Favreau.
Oh, wow, that's weird. I mean, he was Monica's boyfriend in Friends, I suppose.
Well, I think it's more towards some of his late career stuff with the Star Wars stuff going on right now. I think a lot of like The Mandalorian and things like that, and also he had Chef Show and all that. But I don't. Look, I pointed out that I thought it was weird, man. I'm with you.
Even
especially with Vince Vaughn getting recognized in the motion picture stuff, why not just put the two of them together up there and
Well, you first need to understand that Vince Vaughn and Jon Favreau were best friends, and that's how they got into Rudy together. And then on Rudy is where Jon Favreau pestered the creators of the movie Rudy until they actually sat down and talked with him about how to make a movie, and that's when him and Vince Vaughn are like, let's make Swingers.
Right.
So Rudy is really the one who deserves both of those stars. He deserved his one play on Notre Dame, and he deserves the 2 stars for Vince Vaughn and Jon Favreau.
Just to be clear, not Sean Astin. We mean
no,
Rudy.
I mean Rudy, the actual player. Yeah, because that's just the fact of the matter. You don't have Vince Vaughn being who Vince Vaughn is without Swingers. And Jon Favreau doesn't go into television the way that he has in the last 5 years.
Well, let me throw another couple of weird ones out at you. Martin Lawrence is in the television category.
Which I agree with that. That one makes sense. Martin has just had a reunion special on BET.
Yeah,
and
so
that
really pushing that.
The commercial for that, I was a friggin' mess. I had to take a second and compose myself, because the end of the commercial is Gina Campbell and Mikhail Ford and Martin and Tisha Campbell. Oh no, I mean Tichina Arnold. Damn, Tichina. Sitting on the iconic Martin couch, looking at the camera and saying, "This is for you, Tommy." And I mean, the death of Tommy Ford, that hit me so hard, because Martin was one of those shows that I grew up with. And when I was working for Carnival, my roommate Mark, hi Mark, sorry for the room reference, it's kind of hard to say it.
Never apologize.
But my roommate Mark, he's like, on a whim, I picked up the first 2 seasons of Martin, and honestly, that strange nostalgic comfort food of Martin is something that helped me get through my first contract with Carnival.
Yeah.
And that's just a fact of the matter. And I don't know, I love Martin, and Martin Lawrence, for everything that he's done, I do think first of that TV show.
Yeah, well, it's kind of the opposite of what we were just saying with Favreau, right?
Yeah.
Favreau started on the big screen and then kind of found his way to television and really knocked it out of the park when he did. So I guess that's why.
I mean, also Iron Man. He did Iron Man. We wouldn't be sitting in a world of marvelous films.
Yeah.
If he didn't do Iron Man.
So the other one in the television list that I scratched my head at, Ralph Macchio.
Ralph Macchio. So Charles in Charge? That's not Charles in Charge.
That's not Charles in Charge.
I'm an asshole.
The Cobra Kai is, as far as I know, the only thing close.
The only
to a
TV that he
show.
did, right? He was he was in a couple of episodes of Kevin Can Wait as a guy they were trying to get monkey fist security.
Did you think Ralph Macchio? Did you just think Chachi? Is that what it was?
I did. I Scott Baio'd it. I fucked up because Scott Baio is in charge of my days and my nights, and Ralph Macchio is in the Karate Kid.
If you cast Scott Baio as like an older brother or possibly even father for Ralph Macchio, like I would have definitely gone.
I want them to be estranged brothers.
And Tony Danza is their uncle.
Tony Danza is their father. Yeah, I'm sorry about confusing Ralph Macchio and Scott Baio. I guess, because also for Ralph Macchio, my mind went to My Cousin Vinny and that weird thing, which also then connects to the MCU. The MCU is the new sex degrees of Kevin Bacon. I'm just going to stand by that. Really hoping to get Kevin Bacon on the show sometime. We had our shot last year when he was working in Rhode Island. But yeah, so I've just said sex degrees of Kevin Bacon. The so Triple X porn parody.
There you go, Kevin. We're really coming for you.
Yep. I got to tell you though, guys who make Triple X porn parodies, sex degrees of Kevin Bacon, and it's like celebrities, like people done up to look like celebrities, and tracing how they've had sex with Kevin Bacon just 6 people away. That's hilarious. You can have that one for free. I don't know what I'm talking about here.
So
Scott Baio is not Scott Baio, and that's the reason why. That's the other reason, because Scott Baio totally deserves a star on the television Walk of Fame, but Ralph Macchio really doesn't. Like, and not he's great as Daniel in the Karate Kid movies. I haven't watched Cobra Kai. I'm actually starting Cobra Kai this week. That is the plan for the family. We have 1 episode of Walker left before Walker is done, and 4 episodes of Superman and Lois. And then it's going into streaming television, and that's going to be how we get through the days.
Dude, what is going on that show with like other Supermans and
Superman and Lois?
Yeah.
So they
really
introduced Bizarro World, really?
Yeah.
So the other Superman is Bizarro Superman. Though they just say, what a bizarre Superman. And he's just Cal from another dimension.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting because it's Parasite. They're using the Parasite storyline. And it's the way they're sort of grounding it in reality.
They're doing some Superboy stuff too, right?
Yeah, because Superboy has been there from the beginning. One of the twins, the 2 twins are Jordan and Jonathan and Jordan. Jordan has powers, even though he's not like the athletic one, and Jonathan doesn't have powers, though I don't know if that's going to change or anything like that. But as of season 1 and everything I've seen in season 2, that's the fact. And the last episode they showed before the hiatus, and then my parents were away, so we didn't watch any of the other ones because they're into that show. I don't know why. I think the family dynamics, the superhero stuff, doesn't really hit for any Deckers. I'll be honest about that. But it's a really nice, like, family dynamic sort of drama set against small town life, which, like, that's bread and butter for the Deckers. Superman went into the Bizarro dimension, and who came out of the Bizarro dimension was Jonathan's Bizarro version, and he has powers.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Anyway,
sorry.
So back to Ralph Macchio and how you're starting Cobra Kai, right?
Yeah, we're starting Cobra Kai after we finish Superman and Lois.
So report back. Maybe there's more to what's going on there that Ralph Macchio truly just blows it out of the water. Because again, I love Ralph Macchio, but I don't think of television the first time I think of him, right? So what does this mean on the stars, right? Like, is there like a different look to them? Is there like a different emblem or something so that when you see it,
one has a camera and one actually has a TV set, right?
That makes sense. There's also a musical section or a music section, or I guess they call it recordings, at least according to the Deadline article. And then there's a live performance section. So like the recordings is a whole bunch of music artists from over the years and things like that. But then like live performance, one of them listed here is Pentatonics. Why not just put them in? What?
Have you ever seen Pentatonics live as opposed to listening to Pentatonics? So very different.
To be fair, the way they kind of like blew up, right, was because they were on that a cappella style America's Got Talent.
What the heck was that song?
Like
with
10 years
Beck
ago, right?
and one of the Boys to Men as judges.
Yeah, it was like American Idol, but for groups of a cappella groups or something. It only lasted like 1 season, but that was where Pentatonics came out. And people calm down, Pentaheads. Like I understand, like they existed a long time before that.
I like to call them Five Heads, so it's sort of a slant remark and insult. Calm down, Five Heads.
No, that's what Maroon 5 fans call themselves.
Really? I met Maroon 5 once, and I did not call myself a Five Head.
No, I think they just call themselves Maroons, right?
I think they say we're marooned. I don't know. Those were cool guys. Meeting them like right as they were starting to blow up.
Maroon 5?
Yeah, because they played a show at URI. They played the 92 Pro FM Jingle Mingle, the 5th and final Jingle Mingle. And I bought the $9.23 ticket, and it was awful. When I say it was awful, I mean, I was parallel to the stage. Like, you could not see anything that was going on the stage. Yeah. And I looked over, and on the second balcony, there was just a swath of empty seats. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, come on, guys, let's go down there. Let's go sit down there. and there was like no security or anything, so we go sit in these seats, and then they come in, and I'm like, oh man, that's Maroon 5 who just sat down. And I knew that because I also was working at a radio station as well, and we had gotten a bunch of promotional stuff, and I had done like a phone interview with them, kind of. Like just one of those spots that they do, like they booked for all the stuff to talk. So I like had 5 minutes to ask them about the new album, and it was essentially like an extended commercial for them to talk about their album. But it's a cool thing that happened. So I recognize them when they come and sit down in the row in front of us. And then I'm like, yeah, we probably shouldn't be here. Like, this is probably like band seating.
Yeah, probably the when you're not on stage or when you're done on stage section.
So I'm like, but let's just sit here and act like we belong, right?
Yeah. Well, so the joke, by the way, was Marunatics.
Marunatics. I'm sorry, I didn't mean
right
to.
There. No, it was right there. We missed it. I just wanted to apologize.
I was excited sharing my Maroon 5 story, and then they turned around between bands and they're like, you guys aren't supposed to be here, are you? And I'm like, you know what? No, we're not. We're not supposed to be here, Adam. And he's like, nah, that's cool. If anybody gives you trouble, you can just say you're with us. And then we started hanging out with Maroon 5. Wound up backstage with the Bare Naked Ladies. Crazy night. Back to the story.
No, so the Pentatonics, right, like they got started in television, and so visual, like stage performance, like that is kind of how they become known because of that. So I totally get that. It's just I did not know that there was this many like breakdowns of categories in like the Walk of Fame, and then on top of that, the reactions to all of this stuff and people being like, well, it's all just a tourist trap. All it does is lead to just them digging up and gentrifying neighborhoods in order to make space for these things. Like it's a lot of very valid criticisms about this thing that was clearly just created years ago by the tourism committee in Hollywood to just give people more of a reason to come, right? But the best thing that I've heard about the entire thing is that John Waters now has a star on the Walk of Fame, so that a meth head can get stabbed by a guy in a Spider-Man suit and bleed all over it, and I'm sure he'd love that.
I think that's how John Waters is going to replenish his power.
It's going to keep
and somewhere going. In the background, a haunting operatic version of Good Morning Baltimore is heard.
Oh, man.
So all this said, right, we said as a joke, but I need you to know that I have internalized it and sort of made it one of my hopes and bucket list things that we can do as part of this show is to go visit the Canadian Walk of Fame. Yes. Everything that you now know about the American Walk of Fame, does that change your interest in doing that?
It only heightens it.
Okay, good.
Yeah, no, I am so interested. I want to go see the American Walk of Fame, and I, there's something kind of big picture, removed from all problematic nature of what it's actually doing. Like the idea of going to a place like Hollywood and eventually one day every sidewalk being just lined with the names of just like famous, important people. Like that concept on paper sounds amazing, right? So like I want to go see that. And then, I also want to go see why and may or may not be working. Certain people that have maybe gotten stars that it didn't deserve them. And maybe it's a matter of a category, right? Maybe they didn't deserve them because they were in a place that they like, I don't think of this person as a film person, or, the other reasons. So we would have to go and take a look. But I'm very interested in this sort of stuff all the time. I mean, at the end of the day, there's two ways to look at it. You can look at it as a tourist trap, or you can look at it as one of the like really, really loose ways of preserving history, right? At the very least, you're going to have kids that walk down that street someday and they're going to say, oh, like, who was Lucille Ball, Mom? And like, then they'll learn a lesson that day because they saw that name on the street, right? Like that kind of implementation of it is also kind of neat. Obviously that's not the reason. I'm not going to sit here and try and act like that is the true like reason, purpose of the Walk of Fame. But, I can at least put a silver lining on it.
That's good. I can get behind that. It's an interesting thing that we do. I want to know more about, I do believe that there are icons on it as to what this person is on there for. And then I also don't know why, like, Vince Vaughn can't have, like, well, he would have movies, but, like, someone like Jon Favreau can't have movies and the TV icons on there. Mm-hmm. Like, it just seems so strange, that delineation.
Yeah.
But again, I'm not on the thing, and it's not really something that I've ever been interested in. The Canadian Walk of Fame, it's because I can't believe Canada has a Walk of Fame. Not that there aren't significant Canadians. It just seems like a very American thing to do.
Yeah.
The,
Yeah, I mean, the Canadian Walk of Fame, I have to imagine, comes from the fact that we end up doing so much of filming up there for American television and movies, right? So like it's kind of just a natural bleed in of like, well, all of these people that are being celebrated down there, they did 90% of their work over the Canadian border. Why are, like, we should have our stuff up there, and I'd be interested to hear about the history of it and stuff as well, because you're right, it does seem like it's a very weird thing, like this idol worship style type of tourist attraction is like purely American, and the fact that we somehow got one to up there in the north it feels like we kind of invaded a little bit.
yeah, I mean, is that the case too? Like, I'm also interested in the history of it. Is it a symbol of us invading? Is it sort of a gentrification so that there's this like American thing in Canada? Or did Canada also say, well, America's doing it, let's also honor our stars of the
It's still
stage and
gentrification
screen?
if you go in the other direction.
I mean, I get it's starbucking,
Yeah,
but
yeah, yeah.
it's still sort of the same thing. The homogenation of culture is really what I'm using gentrification for, right? Like everything should look this certain way and be of this certain class and representation of wealth
Yeah.
is what I'm
One of
using
the
that term for.
one of the downsides of like globalization and like,
Yeah.
and believing in that stuff is you got to be careful that you're not just like whitewashing everything as you do it. Yeah, for sure.
All right. So I morbed again this past week. Were you able to morb with me? Are we talking about Morbius a little bit, or?
I mean, what more is there to say? No,
No.
to answer your question, because like
All right. Well, no.
just
Once you see the movie, I think that like 10 good minutes on it is worth it, because I'm curious to see what you think about it. As a
Yeah.
two-time morber myself.
I mean, right now it's really hard to kind of touch it, right? Because of everything going on in the meme verse. And so, like, at first it was hard to touch because, like, I just didn't need that kind of disappointment in my life. And then when I was getting close to actually being able to watch it because it came out streaming and all this sort of stuff, that was when the whole, meme culture picked it up. And that becomes really hard to kind of watch with any sense of substance. I like all the GIFs I see of Matt Smith dancing with no shirt on. I'll say that.
I mean, I love every Matt Smith shirtless gif. I have a file on my computer where they're all saved. Because that's my doctor, right? You weren't getting topless gifs of Tom Baker, were you? Is that a doctor? Did I mess up there?
Yeah, no. You did. That was a good one. That was a very good pull.
So that's it. I just was curious. I will say this, watching it a second time, I really do love that movie. Like, it unlocked just so many more things about the creation of the film and the delivery of the story and what the director Daniel Espinosa was doing. Daniel Espinosa also directed a favorite movie of mine that a lot of people probably didn't see, called Child 44. That is about
it was based on a book, right?
It's based on a book, and it's set during World War II, and it's really good. But I didn't know it was Daniel Espinosa when I first saw Morbius. I was like pleasantly surprised to see his name afterwards, and then watching it with that knowledge in mind. One of the things that I would always say about Child 44 when people are like, should I see it? I'm like, it's a little bit slow, but that speed of the film, it's rhythmic. It's almost like you're watching a visual song.
It's intentional. It's not slow because they just had so much they wanted to put in and didn't know how to make a movie. It is slow with purpose.
Yeah.
And that's always good to watch. I love me a good slow movie.
So then watching Morbius again, though, I've found out, and what I've decided, as based on these two movies, and I will check out other things that Daniel Espinosa has done, is that's really his style of direction, is sort of treating it like it's a song, and everything has a rhythm to it. And the rhythm of Morbius, as opposed to something like Child 44, is very fast paced. Like
a Pantera
the BPM is like 140. And it's just like, so you get into it. But again, that rhythm that you're watching, it sort of lulls you. And I could understand someone watching it being like, man, that movie made me sleepy. But it's like, it didn't make you sleepy. You just kind of lost consciousness to the Morb collective.
Listening to you justify Morbius for the rest of our lives is going to be some of the best, I think, material we ever produce.
I was really
Morb consciousness. Oh,
I
man.
really do enjoy it. And then after 2 viewings, I do it. But the good news is, coming this Wednesday, if you're a Disney Plus subscriber, you can finally go into the multiverse of madness if you weren't able to get out to theaters.
Well, I wonder if I should put that limit on myself that I need to see Morbius before I watch Strange this week. Like, maybe that's the thing, because I think part of it is that I also am in this place where I'm just like, I don't want to watch the bad MCU. I want to watch the good MCU. Thank you.
Well, then call it the SSMU, and you'll be able to probably justify it to yourself.
I think that's we've unfortunately hit that point where right now the two universes are both getting compared and confused and all of that too. So just on that level as well, there's just a lot of things working against Morbius, and I hate and to do the movie the justice that any movie deserves, I do not want to carry that much baggage into seeing it. But I think that the problem with that I'm finding more and more with Morbius is that that baggage is just always going to be there.
Yeah, and that's and honestly, I almost feel like that's part of the marketing from Sony.
Oh, I think Sony would love that.
Yeah.
I think Sony. I think somebody at Sony just splooshed their pants and they don't know why, because you just said that out loud. like I think the idea that like there's no such thing as bad publicity is kind of their whole bag with these and the Venom movies. Like this whole universe that they're currently trying to create. I hope they pull away from that. I don't love that kind of style of like creation and marketing and I mean, because it starts to affect the way the movies are made as well, right?
Yeah.
So when I say creation, like I don't love the way that they go into making these movies thinking, yeah, it's gonna suck, but we're gonna make our ducats on it because we know that if we put this and this in it, the internet will pick it up and it'll sell gangbusters on release day of the DVD or something. And it's like, no, fuck that. Like, put a good movie out. How about that instead? Just put a good movie out.
Yeah, and Morbius more so than the 2 Venoms, because I think the 2 Venoms are good movies that are just weirdly mired in the fact that nobody really knew how to take them.
Yeah.
Like, it's so strange that these Venom movies exist, but like independently of Spider-Man.
Yes.
And the second one, I think, is an even better movie because you have, against Tom Hardy, you have Woody Harrelson, who is also just acting his ass off the whole time.
Independently of anything. It's not even Spider-Man, because like, yeah, Spider-Man would be the definitive thing that would make that movie make a lot more those movies make a lot more sense again on paper, conceptually, when you're putting them together. But they're going into it having no real universe to do this in. They are starting the universe with Venom. And I say that knowing full well that this exact conversation probably happened between 2 nerds when they said that they were going to be doing an Iron Man movie, right? And like everybody then was like, why Iron Man?
We might have been the 2 nerds.
Why start with? Well, we would not have been thinking about it in this long form term,
no,
right? But
true.
You're not wrong. We probably did say like Iron Man is kind of a weird choice for a film, but so taking that risk makes sense, but it just doesn't, for me, it doesn't pay off. Like I don't, on a universe, these 2 films cannot be made. Like it's a really weird. It's just a really weird way to kickstart. Ooh, sorry.
It's okay. It's all right. You know what really doesn't work for me? And also, here is an even further point that, like, when they re-released Morbius that second time, they had something that they could have added that honestly would have elevated the experience. And slight spoilers for Morbius, but only, like, in the smallest terms, what I'm about to say. The Daily Bugle is referenced in Morbius, just as the Daily Bugle is referenced in Venom, right? Because they can say the Daily Bugle. For Morbius, they filmed scenes of J. Jonah Jameson, portrayed by J.K. Simmons, and then when they realized, is not in the same universe as the MCU, like there's no possible way it'd be the same character, they cut them out.
Oops.
That's the dumb, like, the fact that J. Jonah Jameson has been portrayed by J.K. Simmons 3 times as 3 distinct J. Jonah Jamesons is beautiful and totally fits into the multiverse.
Yeah.
And it's something that they have complete ability to do based on the deal. They just can't use Spider-Man. They can use everything else from Spider-Man's universe.
And I think they can show a visualization of the concept of the multiverse, but they can't really talk about it, right?
Right.
I think some of the newer stuff that they're also dealing with is they want to stay connected via the multiverse. This is like really tangential and new,
Yeah.
but because of what happens at the end of Morbius, and is exactly why people have suddenly started talking about it, is like these deals were all made before we kind of knew where Disney was going with the whole multiverse concept, right?
Right.
And then tying this into the multiverse makes sense. However, those lines have to be redrawn. How much of the multiverse can they really talk about before they are just calling themselves part of the MCU, right? Disney's not going to stand for that.
Right.
So like they can reference it, but they can't like they can't really explore it in the ways that like that the MCU is going to and all that.
Yeah. It's crazy stuff like that. Like the multiverse is clearly touching them, but I don't think that these characters will get to go into the multiverse to go to that universe.
Nor do they.
Wait, no, I say that, but Tom Hardy's fucking Venom was in No Way Home.
For 1 second though. Like,
but he was still, but it still happened.
Right. But I don't think he's ever going to get to tell anybody about the time he went to a different Earth. Like I don't think that conversation is ever going to be on screen, right? Like that kind of shit. I think that.
Well, they're going to be smart about it. If Tom Hardy ever talks about it, he'll be like, "There's that weird vacation I had."
Well, that if they're good, if it's good writing, that's.
Well, let me tell you, Siege, I am here to say that the Venom movies have pretty good writing, and Tom Hardy would have the delivery to pull it off.
As somebody that has seen those movies, I don't necessarily agree, but not about Tom Hardy. Love Tom Hardy. About those movies, again, two movies that you hold in very high regard, and I very much adore that you do. And I don't dislike in any meaningful way that would mean that like they're not MCU movies. They're these weird one-off superhero movies that like we should have more of. So to get back to the kind of
they're the mid-tier. Sorry, just to tie it together.
It's exactly kind of that, right?
Yeah.
The idea that these guys will never probably be the ones exploring the multiverse and then like run into more people from the Disney side of things, that's okay. In fact, I'd prefer it that way. I really don't need every superhero movie because at this point that's just become the genre now, right? Like it's no longer like this idea of like, well, superhero movies are sci-fi movies because of the ways in which they do this, or fantasy movies because of the ways in which no, superhero movies have just kind of elevated themselves to just this, and people besides Marvel need to really get on like making these movies more. And then on top of that, we need to be okay with like them not always necessarily tying in and connecting every single time because it's just going to become too much. One of the big things about Strange coming out this week is people have been asking me like, should I finally watch it? Should I see it? Because I haven't watched the last like 3 things, and it's just like I don't know. I mean, like on the one hand, yeah, you should just watch it. It's a fun movie. But yeah, if you're going to be sitting there the whole time trying to figure out how it fits into everything, then obviously you should watch everything before it. So like it's become really hard to have that kind of conversation with myself, with friends, with everybody. Like you talked about the idea of Marvel fatigue last week, right? And I think that I am also feeling it, but I'm feeling it more in the fandom than I am in the products, which is, let's be honest, the way that I feel about most nerd culture nowadays. I am just fatigued with fandoms all across the board. But like, I don't want to stop watching the things, right? And so to tie it all back to Morbius, just to put a bow on that, is like maybe then that is kind of the horse I have to ride in order to get through that movie. Is that like I need to kind of divorce myself from everything that's going on online about that movie and in the world about that movie and just watch it. And like I said, it's what I try and do with every movie. It's just I think with Morbius, it's never going to be a natural thing. I think I got to force it.
Yeah, sometimes you always bring baggage with you to anything that you do, right? Considering our perception of the universe and our realities are all based on our experiences, right? And we all share in a reality, but our perception is uniquely our own, right?
Yeah, of course.
It's impossible to go into anything completely blind anymore, or completely without some sort of biases, even if they're unrelated to it, right? Maybe you've never seen a Marvel movie, but you've seen vampire movies, or you know about vampires, so you're judging it against that. Yeah, exactly.
One of the bigger ones for me is not even necessarily the character or the vampireness or any of that. Part of it is also putting up with the whole Jared Leto aspect of it for 2 hours.
Yeah, there's always something that's going to be there. So like it's good to try to temper your expectations and divorce yourself from them, but also learning that part of you is going to be part of the experience regardless is an important thing to come to terms with. And I think I'm going to use this as my springboard into the big thing that I have been doing over the past week.
Yeah, man, I'm excited. I'm trying to turn my Switch off now. It's
Oh my god. Have you been playing this whole time?
no, not this whole time.
No, just when Morbius came up. I'm like, I can sneak away. Devin's gonna vamp for a few hours.
Then I realized you were talking to me and I choked on my own tongue, so that's
So it was announced a while back. First of all, I love beat 'em ups. We know that, and the beat 'em up of beat 'em ups was released this week. Until the next beat 'em up, I guess that tends to be how it goes for me. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles: Shredder's Revenge descended upon the world. And we knew that it was coming, and they were sort of cagey about the release date. And then a week before the game came out, during Summer Games Fest, they gave us the release date. As I've already said, and I will go on record and support again, it's the only information that came out of Games Fest that I actually care about, is that Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Shredder's Revenge finally had a release date. And on release day, June 16th, I beat it 3 times on all 3 systems that it released to. I haven't played it on PC yet, but I beat it on Xbox solo, doing arcade mode. And then I did arcade mode with my sister Dale, her friend Joe, and my friend Mark, each of us playing a turtle and going from start to finish. So that was a fun experience. And this is the special experience, and I want to highlight this experience, and I want you to know, Claude, that usually when you tell me you start listening to the Say Report, that doesn't mean that I work you into the Say Report, right? You are special for what's about to happen. I want you to know that. Because I have a friend, and he commutes to work. He rides the train, and one of the things that we always talk about is, are there any games I should get on my Switch because I use my Switch while I'm commuting. So Turtles comes out. I've played through it twice at this time, so I just drop him a little line saying, there's a new Ninja Turtles game out. You might want to look into it, right, for your commutes. And his response was, oh my god, I just was listening to the Say Report, and then suddenly there you are. Which prompted me to say, the devil is dead. Let us forever change the term and to speak of the Devon. Right? Let's do it, right? If God is dead, the devil dies with him. Speak of the Devon, and here I am. So I tell him about the game, and he gets back to me an hour later saying, so I bought the game and downloaded it. Will you play through with me? And I'm like, yeah, sure. So the first thing, and this is the first thing that I want to share about Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Shredder's Revenge, is they've been selling it on the crossplay. That's a lie right now. The crossplay is a bigger lie than the cake in Portal. Because crossplay does exist between the PC version and the Xbox version. But they are also saying that you can crossplay with the Nintendo Switch. That is not active yet.
Okay.
There's no way to crossplay with Nintendo Switch right now.
There's no way to find anybody to do it.
Yeah.
Right?
Well,
the system, the skeleton in place to connect the two isn't in the game, and it's certainly not on the systems. So
yeah. Well, it's not in the Switch element at all. Because in the Xbox version, when you go to the Party Up menu, there is a crossplay option to enable or PC, disable it.
Yeah.
But that it does not exist in the PS5 or the Switch, because they also say that the PlayStation version will one day have crossplay. I'll believe it when I see it. I feel like I've been hearing that since 2009.
Good luck getting through the red tape at PlayStation for them to allow you to talk to anybody on like an Xbox or a Switch. Yeah, I don't know. Has anything ever successfully done that?
Apex Legends.
Yeah.
That's the only one that I can point to, and because I have played on a Switch with Dale on the PlayStation, I have played on my PC with Dale on the PlayStation, and we connected when I was on an Xbox to her playing on PlayStation, but then the game wouldn't load. But we were able to find each other, right? And that has to do more with the fact that I think it's EA who's behind Apex.
Yeah.
You have an EA account, and they use those in order to connect people.
I think is it Epic? Yeah.
No, Epic is Fortnite.
That's right. Epic is Fortnite.
So they use that account in order to connect you together. So really, you're connecting to the server, and then in the server, they're like, well, damn the torpedoes. We're in control of you now. We can link you to whoever we want to.
Yeah, so the crossplay thing is a bit of a bummer, but I will say the performance that we had, we did have a couple of slight issues in terms of internet, but I think that was more on my personal internet than anything to do on the Nintendo side of things.
Yeah.
The actual online play of this game has been a blast.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing. So Claude's like, can you do it? So we first tried to crossplay because it was a big feature. Does not work. But then we connected. I bought it on Switch. We connected on Switch. And we played through the game completely unexpectedly. He's like, I can probably play for half an hour. And I'm like, that's good, right? We'll get to do some couch co-op, sort of, over the internet. And then suddenly it's 1 a.m. and we just beat the game. Like, blink of an eye. And I want to say that was the moment that felt the most indicative of what Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles as a beat-em-up game has been in my life. All that nostalgia there, the two of us just kind of shooting the shit about where we are in life. It felt like I was 6 years old again with Cody Summerfield and Ashton and PJ and Brian sitting and playing the Ninja Turtles game in the game room at our house.
Yeah,
like,
I think it might
was
be.
Awesome.
Yeah, I think when you and I, so eventually you and I got around to doing it together too this weekend.
Yeah,
and I think when you and I did it, it's the first time that I have ever by myself on a controller, like from start to finish, played a full beat 'em up. Because usually if I'm playing, I'll play by myself and I'll usually, I'll go for an hour or two and then get bored and walk away. Or if I'm playing through the full thing with people, there's so many of us that we're handing the controller off, right? And whether it's based on like when you die or ending a chapter or whatever. So like Simpsons, X-Men, like all of these old ones that we had access to, that we used to do controller trade, like as you sit around and play them. So I've definitely gotten through games before, but never like sat down start to finish played through before. And it's part of it is because the game just captures just so much for me of that exact same stuff that you're talking about. On top of that, it looks gorgeous, it's funny, like there's all that sort of stuff going on. And then add to all of that, we had one of the coolest experiences I've ever had as far as the brawler goes. And we had a full party for the majority of our time. We had a 6-player party going through that game, and it was working, and it was wonderful.
Yeah, and that's the other thing that I want to highlight here. And like, we'll get into the story of the game and everything like that, but the experience around the game was the thing that I was the most nervous about. Yeah. Like, this is I mentioned last episode that I've been playing through River City Ransom Underground. Right. And Dale and I staunchly said we're not playing any more of this because we don't want to get beat 'em up fatigue and have that affect how we feel about the Ninja Turtles game. And the reason we said that is, come to find out, River City Ransom Underground is basically an unfinished Kickstarter project. So, I mean, it's all there, but it was released and it really hasn't gotten a lot of support after its release because the money just kind of went away.
Right.
And like, there are whole bosses that you're supposed to be able to fight that just are not programmed in. The game just skips past them. And for such a long time, you couldn't fight the final boss because he just wasn't programmed into the game. So a lot of the jank that we've been experiencing playing that game is uniquely that game. And that nothing became more apparent than we loaded up into Ninja Turtles Shredder's Revenge, and it's just like, oh my god, this is a full, complete package and experience.
Yeah.
Like, this is what a finished beat-em-up feels like. And the real nice thing about it, and some people are already bummed about it, already looking for the gray cloud over this wonderful experience, is .emu and Tribute Games, the people who are responsible for the game, came out and said there's not going to be any DLC. Now, we've heard that before, and it doesn't necessarily mean there's not going to be any DLC, but the reasons why they're saying no DLC is this game has been finished and tested, and they wanted to make sure it was the completest package possible before releasing it to the public.
And then on top of that, I'm sure that they want to turn their attention to other stuff now. Like, this is something they've been working on for years,
at least
right?
2 years.
Yeah, like they've been, this is something they've been hugely and intensely focused on, and there's clearly so much love in this game to beat 'em ups in general. To we joked about scenes in this that are clearly references to other games, right? And then references to the movies, references to the Turtles and their history, non-references, the absence of references in some places. is. Like, there's all this, there's so much going on that you can tell that this was not just a physical labor that has probably tired them over 2 years, but a true labor of love, a mental labor that has probably been super taxing on them. And the idea that they want to say, like, look, we put everything into this, and then on top of that, what's the full price of it? $40 at most?
$25.
Yeah, yeah,
and and the worst part about it, I feel for them on this, is the physical versions of this game were not available on the digital release date. The physical games, and for just the game, if you're going to go to like a Target, a Walmart, order it off of Amazon, that release date is the 31st of July. And that, for the physical copy, is $35.
Yeah.
And, I mean, I understand. I think a lot of that is the free personal pan pizza. I think that cost is not necessarily that free. But that's fine. And that doesn't upset me. But what I feel is this first week, while Shredder's Revenge is available digitally, you can get it at a 10% discount.
Yep.
Basically everywhere that games are available digitally. When I first heard about the discount, everybody said it's for PlayStation Plus subscribers only, and I thought, oh, okay, so that's like on Switch you'd have to pay the full price. And then it was revealed, no, if you have Xbox Game Pass, you get this game included with it, which that's a huge windfall for them there. Because, you pay $10 less than buying the game for the Ultimate Game Pass, so you can play online and with other people. You get that game and everything else that is available in the library, even if you just do it for a month, right? Though, I will say, and Siegen helped us find this out, you do have to be playing on an Xbox console to experience this game. It's not available cloud-related, and you can't get it on PC Game Pass, right?
So it is in the cloud. The problem is that the tier system, you need to be paying for Xbox Ultimate, which is the $14.99 plan, in order to have access to the cloud beta. So the $1 offer that they have out for 3 months doesn't get you that access.
Gotcha.
So you can do it, but you're going to have to pay for the full month-to-month $14.99 price to get into it, and then you can get on the cloud. So that wasn't the issue. The issue was the cloud. The whole cloud beta in general has been tiered off to the Ultimate. And I don't know when that happened, because it might have even been that way the whole time. But that is what's going on there. And then you mentioned the PlayStation Plus thing, that 10% discount. They've changed their whole system in the last month as far as the tier system goes. Is that 10% discount from the lowest tier, or do you need to be their Ultimate member in order to get that kind of discount as well?
Happy to report I'm the lowest tier, and the discount is available to me.
And is there anything on the higher tier? Like, do you pay for the higher tier and maybe get it as part of their whole... Because part of their higher tier package is that there's no longer a PlayStation Now. They just have a bunch of streaming games available to you. I wonder if it's in that or will be in that someday. So
so far, maybe someday, but right now those higher tiers are for PlayStation 3, PlayStation 1, PlayStation 2 games. It's not really anything like the new games. That they still want to drive sales with those.
Right.
Which is why a lot of the people who are critical of the Xbox Game Pass are like, it's okay, like, I'll pay for the high tier, but I'll still buy and own the other games that come out. I won't be renting them the way I would with Xbox Game Pass. And I'm like, I feel like you're looking at this in a way to, like, still assert dominance.
Yeah.
And that's weird. That's a weird way to approach this.
Gamers.
Yeah.
But so all of this is to say is that there's a whole web of ways that you can get a hold of this game out there, and like don't get caught up in that. Like the price is worth the price of admission at any of these prices that we've named so far.
It's even worth the price of admission at $35 for the physical.
I would definitely pay that. Especially get me that coupon, frame that shit, put it up over my computer. Oh man.
Yeah, it's worth it. But I do feel like that 10% discount, because that 10% discount also extends to the Switch for the first week, is trying to drive people to get the digital copy. Because I know people who didn't realize that it was going to be available earlier. Because I had people say, like, oh, I'm going to have to wait because $35 seems a lot for a beat-em-up. And I'm like, well, it's $25 digitally. And then, like, I'm like, and also I think it's 10% off of that. So you're like $22 before tax. Like, I understand not wanting to pay $35, but $20 for this type of game, and that was before I knew how much content was in there. It's
Yeah, yeah.
16 levels long. You have a story mode that actually adds like collectibles and little cameos to find.
Challenges in each of the
Oh yeah,
levels and stuff like that. Yeah.
I don't know. Those challenges upset me because it's a lot of get through the level without taking damage, and
Some
like
of them are,
that's not
yeah.
how I want to play the game.
Yeah, yeah. So some of them are like to perform certain things in certain areas that those are fun. I'm the kind of guy that really loves the idea of achievement hunting, but I don't care about 100%ing anything.
Yeah.
So like having something to go for is cool, but if it's an achievement that I'm just like this is fucking ridiculous.
Well,
It's what happened with Tiny Tina.
yeah.
Is I got like 70% of the main trophies in that game, but the last 30%, and this is probably high. I probably actually got 80 to 90%. But the last small percentage of trophies in that game are all tied to getting yourself fully upgraded based on spending money, and the amount of money you would need to do that. I'd have to be playing the game 12 hours a day, every day a week for a month. Like basically that is reserved for the Twitch streamer out there. Those achievements. So I just walked away from it. Like I'm like it's a bummer because I love this game and would love to 100% it, but I'm not gonna. Maybe one day if I make the money, I'll buy that shit and that'll do it. But it's not skill based. It's not a challenge anyway. It's not like go and find this thing in the world. Like it is literally just keep making money and then buy enough of these upgrades that eventually you are fully upgraded in every category, and then I'll be at 100% trophy, which is just a bummer.
Yeah, I had a. So I'll say that's the thing. The challenges, like the whole get through levels without taking damage and all of that, there are no achievements or trophies that are tied to that. The hardest
Even better.
trophy, the hardest trophy that's sort of like that is the final fight against Kevin Nash, the Super Shredder. Spoilers, I guess, but every Ninja Turtle game has ended with a fight against Super Shredder since he was introduced.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
not the craziest newest thing that they're doing. Yeah, you have to beat him without taking any damage. And I say that's the hardest one. There's also one for getting a 250 hit combo, getting through arcade mode on the hardest difficulty. So like there are some hard ones there, but it's never. But like one of the trophies or achievements is not complete all of the challenges in story mode.
I mean, that's awesome. That's even better. Yeah. Yeah. No, the challenges are cool and it's fun, especially when like the couple of them would pop up as we were playing, and I didn't even realize what I had done. So like talking about it, and then like you talk about like, oh, it's because you knocked that guy back and forth 6 times. You got this, and it's like, well, I'm going to try that again, and that is always really fun. It's what the pure reason for achievements to exist was always meant to be, right? Is like to give yourself something to do as you're going through to like kind of just challenge yourself and make the game have a little bit more oomph, and that stuff is great. But yeah, like you said, like so you end up with the story mode, you get these extra characters that are looking for stuff, so you get collectibles, you got these challenges you can do. Then there's the arcade version where you just kind of fly through it, and that's always just fun. Then the fact that there's 3 different levels to it, so like I'm playing through. We talked about this before we started recording. Like, but when I started the story mode, I was like, I'm just gonna do chill. Like, unless there's some reason, some games will block stuff off depending on what difficulty you're on, and if I find that out, then maybe I'll switch it up. But for right now, I'm just going through the story mode on chill because like I just want to go and just go in, look around, find stuff, look at the art. Like, there's times where I will just stop and just look at some of the stuff that's going on in the backgrounds or even on the characters that are just showing up on screen and stuff. Like, I love the artwork of this game, and I don't know if I could do that on the harder difficulties. So I'm like just taking my time.
Yeah, I'm playing through. The other things that I've done gameplay wise is I did a 6-player completely rando playthrough of the game. That's how I got through hard mode, and I can report nothing different for beating the game on hard mode there. So you can just play it. I say that because Ninja Turtles historically was one of those games where unless you beat it on hard mode, you didn't get to see the credits or the full ending. Turtles in Time specifically.
Yeah, I mean the thing is like that's like the Konami thing to do, right? Like it's just it's that idea that playing on the higher difficulty always would get you. I mean, we talked about this with River City Girls. You get a little bit more story. You get a little bit more understanding of what was happening. You get a whole other boss fight. That kind of stuff.
Right. Well, River City Girls does not have that, thankfully. There's no reason to play on hard mode for River City Girls. I will tell people that because a lot of people think that the normal mode is too hard on that game.
Yeah.
And so that's not one. But like Contra 3, you don't get to fight the final boss if you're not
What
in
was
hard mode.
wait, one of the River City Girl ones, I thought you had to get through to the end to see the whole thing about them like waking up from their coma or something. Was that
No,
not related to difficulty
that
level?
is all headcanon from Devon. We can start calling that Dev Canon. It also kind of sounds like I'm Nick Cannon's illegitimate child or father. I don't know. But that's all Dev Canon. No, there's you get the good ending if you find all the collectibles in a single playthrough. It doesn't have to be hard mode for that. Hard mode is only there to give yourself more of a challenge. And a lot of people don't even touch it because, come to find out, because I'll talk about like the hardest mode on the Shredder's Revenge really just buffs the bosses and makes those fights sort of ridiculous. Like the normal mode, I guess it's cool mode, right? No, it's okay. It's chill, okay, and gnarly.
And what's the last one called?
Gnarly.
Gnarly, right.
Okay is the most balanced play experience. It feels satisfying fighting the boss. They don't go down hyper quick like I have found on chill mode, but they don't present like too much of a challenge, or they don't have like certain periods where you can hurt them. I mean, there are still some bosses who you do need to wait for them to be tired to hurt them, but I'm talking specifically, the one that leaps to mind is Krang in his android body.
Yeah, right.
You can only hurt him when the android body is in one piece on gnarly difficulty. That's not the case on any of the other difficulties.
Yeah, the damage windows are just super tight on gnarly in a way that is not appealing to me.
Yeah, and you don't do a lot of damage. Even as like the highest damaging character, which is Splinter, which I really respect that they would make the sensei of the Turtles the strongest character.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't. It still takes him a long time to beat a gnarly boss. Where on chill mode, I can beat like the Super Shredder in 7 special attacks.
That's pretty rad.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the other thing. Some really fun like side moves, like with the specials and stuff. Like everybody has unique ones in there, and they're just a freaking blast.
Yeah. While the game is most obviously a callback to the Konami Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle arcade games, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and Turtles in Time, it really feels like a nostalgia-fueled journey from Konami beat-em-ups circa 1990 to 1992, because there's homage to the Simpsons game, where you got to play the balloon burst game that is at the end of the first level. That just exists when you go to an amusement park in game. And there's also like the special moves really feel reminiscent of the X-Men arcade game, and the fact that everybody has this unique special that they can only use while they have a charge to do it. And then also the fact that it's 6-player, right? Because the Ninja Turtle games were notoriously 4-player, but X-Men, I remember when that giant 2-monitored monstrosity came to my local arcade, and like 6 people can play the game at the same time? That's insanity! And like, to do that with Ninja Turtles, first of all, it means that April and Splinter get some love, and then also the secret character, which is another thing that I'd like to explore a little bit, because it's another some things stick in my craw about this game too. There are some complaints that I have about this game. Primarily, it's the 3rd level boss. You're fighting a truck as Ninja Turtles on skateboards, and it just has too much hitbox. Too much of it can hurt you, even to the fact that if you're hitting it, you kind of slightly move forward while you're attacking. So if you hit it with a full combo, you end up taking damage.
Interesting.
It just seems like a small little oversight. It's what it honestly feels like is the water temple in The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time. In the fact that because the testers got so familiar with the water temple, they're like, oh, it's perfect. It's perfectly balanced. But then when normal people play the water temple for the first time, not having played it over and over and over again, it can be confusing as hell. I feel like the testers, because they got used to knowing how many times you could hit that boss without taking damage, they're like, perfectly balanced fight. Not understanding that in the 3rd level, you have this fight that has like a really weird difficulty curve compared to everything else that you've been dealing with up to that point. Um,
Okay.
the other big one is spoilers. I'm going to say spoilers. It's the dumbest spoilers tag that I've ever given to anything on this show, primarily because of the fact that the people who made the game spoiled it themselves in the marketing for the game. And that's what I have a real problem with. It would have been a nice surprise to unlock this character after beating the story mode. But the way that they marketed it, it made it feel like he was available from the beginning. And a lot of people were upset by that.
Yeah, I was a little thrown by the fact that that was not the case, but also one character out of seven, I was okay. I was like, you know,
Yeah,
it was what
exactly.
it was.
Like, it's one of those things where, if they put in the marketing, unlock Casey Jones, right? The fact that they just made it look like he'd be playable from the beginning, that seemed a little, like a little hinky, is what I would say. Because you do need to play through and complete the story mode in order to unlock that character. How far are you in the story mode right now? Because I'd like to test something after we're done with the show. Like, just brief.
I'm in chapter 2.
Okay.
I finished chapter 2, so I'm going into chapter 3, I should say.
So what I want to do, right, and we will report back on this next thing, is invite you to a game and beat the final stage, because you've played through arcade mode, right? So there'd be no spoilers for you.
Right.
I'd like to play through that final stage with you and see if that unlocks the character through an online play.
Oh, so just you think it's just based on the stage, not a full playthrough?
I think it's based on just the stage, not a full playthrough of the game.
Okay.
That's what I'd like to test out. I'd like to see that. So there's a theory that we're going to test, right? We're not game theory. We're the Stay Report. But I do have a theory.
Yeah, this isn't going to lead to the discovering that Casey Jones is secretly the Turtles' father or something. That's not what this is going to be.
Well, actually, no, he's not. Imagine if it was. The ooze was nothing until Casey Jones took a piss in it.
No, the ooze was just Casey Jones's piss all along. He'd just been drinking a lot of Mountain Dew the whole time.
I pissed down a sewer grate. And that's not what happens at all, but I love this, right? And considering the TMNT started out as a parody comment of the Daredevil, because I'm 70 years old, I would be all right with a future parody where Casey Jones' piss is what creates the Turtles. That's my new death canon. This is a dangerous term that I've come up with. Oh. Yeah, we don't know if the girls are in Coma's Siege, and I just deeply believe it.
Yeah. I just remember there being something about there being a different ending where you learn more about the fact that they are actually not the boys' girlfriends after all and all that.
That's the original ending, and that's the problem with River City Girls. To go back to it, spoilers for River City Girls, 2-year-old game, and a sequel is coming out sometime this year. That's the real reason why I was excited about the Shredder's Revenge release date, is I felt like both Way Forward and .emu were kind of playing release date chicken to see who would drop it first. And now that we know the Turtles, I imagine we'll get information for a release date on River City Girls 2 sometime. I think maybe the first week of July we'll have a release date, and I think it'll be sometime in August, or they'll shoot for September.
As far as announcements go, they're going to want to give this game some breath,
room,
because if they just announce on top of this game, it's going to look petty and comparative in a way that they don't need.
That they don't want it to be. Not even needing.
Well, especially considering you're not the first person telling me what a good time you're having with this game. So if they wanted it before, they definitely don't want it now, considering how well this game is actually being received.
Exactly. But that's I don't think it's going to come out till September, is my guess. If I were Way Forward, and I'm not Way Forward, I'm Devon Decker in my basement recording an episode of the Stay Report, I would try to release in September. Because the first game was released September 5th. If you try to hit that as the anniversary, that'd be cool. That'd be come back to River City 2 years later.
Yeah, Way Forward's kind of tied up in the Shantae stuff right now. Anyway, I think it's
the 20th anniversary.
20th anniversary with a bunch of good sales and stuff, and they're pushing that stuff right now, pretty crazy, which was fun. I bought into Half Genie Hero earlier in the week, and started a playthrough of that. But then Turtles came along.
Yeah, exactly, and Turtles is probably going to be the game for a while. We started the playthrough with Mom, but because she's older and her eyes get tired, we're doing it one episode at a time.
That's
and that's
awesome.
exciting. And we're having fun doing it. And you want the true nostalgia is her being like, there's a part in the first level where foot soldiers come out of a door, and she's like, "Oh, remember when we used to just stand by the door because we knew they were coming and just beat them up?" And I'm just like, this is great. It's so cool seeing my mom have nostalgia for those arcade experiences.
Yeah.
That this is such a like capture and indication of.
Yeah, no, they done good.
Yeah.
They really did. And so to go back to the whole like first thing that we talked about with this, the idea that they do not want to mess with it. What they consider this to be is the full package, and they don't want to fuck with it with like DLC and all that sort of stuff. Does that mean no patching as well, or do you think we might hear about any of that sort of stuff?
So I think there's going to be some patching. In fact, those are the jokes that are flying around the Decker house, primarily in the gaming station where Dale and I play most of our video games. Is oh, I can't wait till they take that out because they deem it too hard for people to deal with, or it makes the room too easy. Because notoriously, Streets of Rage 4, within like 2 months, had a complete rebalancing of the game, removing of obstacles from certain locations, adding obstacles in other locations. And that's the same company. Dotemu and Tribute Games were the ones who did Streets of Rage 4.
Yeah.
So there is some fear, because we have seen them tinker with a game before, that they would do some of that tinkering as well. So my hope,
you're playing it now.
Yeah. So my big hope is that announcement of no DLC means that all of these levels are balanced out the way that we want them to be. We made sure that we don't run into the same issues that we had with Streets of Rage 4. I have no proof of that. I have no way of determining that at this time. I'm going to be monitoring it for patches. I mean, specifically, one would imagine, unfortunately, you're not going to get any patches for the game until after July 31st.
That's true, until after the that is out. Although with that might not hold true, because if they can work out a bunch of kinks with patches now in the first 2 weeks, then what they can do is they can just drop one immediate like update patch when you first put the disc in, and then call that good. And I mean, they could use this as like play testing essentially.
So the issue with that though is, and this is where it comes from. This totally comes from knowing how physical media tries to work with games that are initially digital. Something like Limited Run Games, who are one of the publishers on the whole Amazon thing. Limited Run Games is a publisher of the game in its physical form, right? Even the ones you're going to get at like Target, Limited Run Games is going to be part of that production of those, because Limited Run Games are the ones who got the pizza coupon in there, and they're the ones who did the work to get that done. So they are involved in all of the physical copies of this game that are being printed. That being said, whenever they try to go to print for the games, they want to put the most complete version of the game onto the media, because they don't want you to have to download patches to make the game playable. So they would want to put the most up-to-date version of the game. So the fact that they only have like 6 weeks to print and distribute all of these games, my guess is the build that we're currently seeing on all of the systems and the PC is the build of the game that's going to be distributed out.
Yeah, and not to mention that there are also there's been some severe changes and limits to the day one patch stuff over the years. I know that PlayStation, I think it's based on a percentage.
Yeah.
Like you can't put out a patch with a percentage of disk space higher than like what's on the disk within like the first like week or something like that, because they specifically wanted to stop people from selling discs that basically had nothing on them, and then you just download a digital version anyway, which was where we were headed, and to be honest, still headed, because those kinds of rules get put in place, but then they're rules that are put in by the industry. They're not like laws that are like held to by the government, right? So they can break their own rules all they want. But the I know that is something that they have discussed, like making sure that people don't do that sort of stuff. And this is not a very big game, so if it is a percentages thing, they can't be going out and putting out like a 4 gigabyte patch for this game day one, right?
Right. It's a 1.66 gig game.
You're right.
So
exactly.
That's a good point if those are the things. It's just, it is something that I am nervous about, because one of the main reasons why I would still get a physical copy of this game is to make sure that this version that I am playing right now is the version that I will always be able to go back to. It's the reason why I buy physical stuff too. Demon's Souls, they ended up patching that game and taking out some of the fun exploits from the original, like when it first released. And I'm so happy to have a disc because I'm able to revert pre-patch and play it as it originally came out.
Yeah.
So it would kind of stink if they release patches and then the only one that's available on physical is the one with all of that stuff like fixed and rearranged. And there's currently nothing like big game breaking in the thing. The only game breaks that I've seen have been related to online play, and those are like natural growing pains of like server space being taken up or like matchmaking abilities.
Yeah, we ended up with like a weird one where a couple of characters were able to get a screen ahead of us, and we got stuck on a previous screen. So all that really did is that when we then got to the next screen, like a lot of stuff had already been kind of like cleared out in terms of like items and baddies and stuff. And so it was a little weird because we suddenly had like a screen and a half where there was not much going on. But it was because some people had somehow gotten a hold of us and done a bunch of the dirty work already, which was kind of wild. And there's no way to like predict that and use that as like a continuous like game breaker like going forward. Kind of like you mentioned when one of your playthroughs, you and a buddy somehow performed a special move at just the right moment to basically wipe out a mini boss, right? And like we tried it with 6 people and couldn't do it. So I don't know, man. It seems like anything that I've heard about as well is not really related to like, oh, this is baked into the game and we're going to exploit the hell out of it and they're going to before they patch it. I'm not seeing that kind of stuff yet.
Yeah, and that's the type of stuff people are already trying to do speed runs of this game. It's the nature of that. Even though like with Streets of Rage 4, they're probably not going to have the boards open right away so that people can learn it, and it's not just, oh, I have number 1. No, I have number 1. It's not really about challenge. It's just about the fact that this is the first guy who beat the game as Raphael. So he can submit his world record as Raphael.
Yeah.
So they like to like put rules in place and all of that. I haven't really been noticing any huge exploits for the game right now, other than April is the fastest and Splinter is the strongest. But,
well, and that's not exploits. That's just the way the game is built, just to make sure that it's fun playing as different characters, right?
Yeah, exactly. And that's...
Why weren't you... Yeah, sorry.
What was it? Why weren't I more...
I think I was about to lead you into the same thing you were about to lead into. Whoa, different characters, Dev. We were... Why weren't you feeling some of them?
Okay, so... Here's the biggest issue that I have with the game. My biggest issue is definitely that 3rd level boss. That is the thing that... And the reason for that is that it took me 7 tries to beat it on hard mode. The first time I beat it on hard mode, and it's just like my character doesn't have the utility to do damage because everything is moving him into getting hurt by this boss. And I eventually weathered through, and it felt really good and it was satisfying. But I mean, a boss, especially in a fighting game, it's weird for the boss to have a hitbox at all due to the nature of it. It's their attacks that tend to have the hitbox, not the boss themselves. So it's really, like, it just threw me off as somebody who plays these types of games a lot, that, like, oh, I walked into the boss and I took damage. Now, I get it, it's a truck, but, oh, this wheel doesn't have a hitbox, though. But then if it moves down, the trunk does. It's just very strange. That's the big one. But a secondary, not really complaint, but I said that April is the fastest character. By the nature of April being the fastest character, she's kind of the most fun to play as, because you have just insane mobility. It feels like you have a lot of options in combat. It feels like you're never going to get really overwhelmed by anything.
No, because you can just run away, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Because of just how responsive she is, and that naturally being the reflection of her being the fastest character. Now, the character who is the worst to me, the one that I have had the least fun playing as, is Donatello. And that's strange to me because as a kid, Donatello was my favorite turtle to play as, mostly for the range. And then when I started playing based on like preference of character, I played a lot as Raphael, and I loved Raphael because of the strength of it all. It's okay that he's not fast. He's killing guys in 2 hits as opposed to 3. So
Right.
it like tricks your brain into thinking you're going faster.
Well, no, it's all about how do you register it, right?
Yeah.
And for you, that your brain is more pleased by that than it is by speed. You know, that's just everybody's different, which is why having 6 playable characters off the start and then 7 eventually is awesome.
Yes. But so the last turtle I played as was Donatello. The last character I played as was Donatello. I've cleared it as Raphael, Splinter, April, and Casey. So I have the other. Oh, I cleared it as Leonardo too. I did it as Leonardo yesterday. I forgot about that. So I've done it as everybody except for Michelangelo and Donatello. I played as Michelangelo with my mother and sister when we did that, and I loved it. Michelangelo felt hyper responsive, like really enjoyable to play as. It felt like good feedback from the game to what I was doing. And then playing as Donatello, everything just kind of felt slower and weaker.
Yeah.
And
you feel like you're kind of walking through the mud a little bit. I played a little bit with each one, and then finally settled on April as my one that I was going to play on the story mode. So I went into arcade and putzed around for a little bit before I started the game, the story mode proper. And I don't disagree. I liked playing as all of them. I want to make that clear. Donnie definitely felt a little bit muddy though, like he was kind of just slogging through it.
Yeah, and then I wonder, because my mother, when we did a thing as just the 2 of us, and she's like, well, I'm going to play as Donatello right now because Dale's not here, because Dale kind of claims Donatello whenever we play. She didn't play yesterday when you and I played with Zach from Board with Friends because Zach had claimed Donatello.
Yeah.
So, and she was like, I really like Michelangelo, and I'm like, yeah, no, it's a faster character. It feels a little bit better, doesn't it? So that's the thing. So my mother tried Donatello, and this was before I had ever played as a character, and I'm like, I feel like he's not being responsive. Is it just because she doesn't have the same level of experience with the game as me, or that? And then like getting behind the controls as Donatello prior to us recording, I'm like, oh no, he is kind of a sluggish character. He doesn't feel. And even Claude, when we were playing, he had started as Donatello, and then there's a achievement to beating the 5th level as Splinter, and I switched to Splinter just for that level, and he switched to Michelangelo, and then he's like, yeah, I'm going to stay Michelangelo, though. This is more fun than I was having with Donatello.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And it's like,
I mean, it's cool to find that out. And the thing is like, your sister seems to like playing as Donatello if she keeps playing, right? Dale, if it's not that she feels like she has to take him, so nobody else has to, right?
Yeah. Well, it's actually really strange, and I'm going to go back to River City Ransom Underground and thus River City Girls. Dale's character in River City Girls, she plays as Masako, and Masako is more of a grappler and a brawler. So her stuff is her moves are a little bit slower, and she moves a little bit slower, but everything kind of packs more of a punch behind it, where I play as Kyoko, and Kyoko is acrobatic. So it's more about speed than like doing a bunch of damage. It's the frequency of hits, not the strength of the hit. And then we get to River City Underground, and the character that I'm playing in that one is like the slow, strong guy. He kind of plays like Ryu or Ken from Street Fighter, and she's playing as a more aerobic character, and she's not really loving it, but she wanted to play as that character because that's the only reason we're playing River City Underground, is because this character, Provi, is going to be in River City Girls 2. So we wanted to be familiar with her story from the game that she came from before we played the new one. Yeah. And she's like, but I'd like to play as Provi so that I'm familiar with it, because I think I'm going to play as her in River City Girls 2. And she's like, it's really weird. Like, she like moves fast. She feels kind of weak. And it's like, well, those are the characters I like to play. I'm not used to the like strong character who's slow to move. Nice. So then you look at somebody like Donatello, and his movement, that like muddy that we're talking about, that's the kind of stuff that Dale loves in a character.
I mean, that's cool. That's awesome.
So it's what's really awesome is Donatello is her favorite turtle, and by like just the grace of the development gods, he plays the way she likes to play a beat 'em up.
That's awesome.
Like it's a really interesting, just like being dealt a fortune sort of thing to happen. Like,
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like, I don't know. I don't have too much more to say other than just like play the game if you haven't. It is a real blast, and it is one of the best like couch games that I think I've purchased in a while. I'm excited to play it with other people, like when people can start hanging out soon. You know?
Yeah, I am very excited for that Oracle Day where I have 6 people in a room, all of us with a controller playing on the one TV.
That's
Because
awesome.
the arcade like experience of playing with randos to get through the arcade mode on hard difficulty, that was unmatched. That was an excellent experience. But if we're able to couple that, like, you know, making jokes and talking to each other while we're playing, all having sort of like a similar background that we're coming from,
Yeah.
I think it'll be exciting. It's really, and I am trying to get a 6-player game together with like people that I know. And if that does happen, I'll report back next week. But I do highly recommend the game. Even if you're not like a crazy beat 'em up person like myself, there's a lot there that, like, even if you just remember them from the arcade, you're probably going to have a good time.
No, yeah, this is one of those beautiful love letters to the genre that also opens the doors for the not average fan to come in. You know,
Yeah.
It's great. It really is.
Yeah, and I think that they've done everything they can for accessibility, especially with that price. I think they could have easily charged $40 for the digital copy of this.
Yeah, no,
And
I don't disagree, but between the price, the fun that I've had with it, and again, I cannot express how much the music and the visuals are just amazing.
dude, there's freaking Raekwon and Ghostface Killer doing a rap when you fight Shredder is awesome. Like, they took the time to make sure. And the references, a lot of the references, read all of the references are from the 1987 show. So you'll probably be okay if that's your only experience with the Turtles.
Yeah,
And just as that. But they also still go deep cut with that, with like enemies like Tempestra
yeah.
and Captain Zorax of the Triceraton Army.
Oh,
Things
man,
that, like, I remember it.
Baxter, what's the fly?
Baxter Fly.
Yeah, but yeah, well, they call him by his full name, and
He's just Baxter Stockman. Yeah,
Baxter Stockman. That's what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, like that kind of stuff is what really like grabbed me while we were playing, because I had not gotten that deep into it yet, and so seeing that kind of stuff come up was just rad.
Yeah, it's just a lot of fun. The game's a lot of fun, and I'm super happy to say that, because there was, like, I gotta tell you, going to bed Wednesday night, I was full of anxiety that I had built the game too much up in my head. And that it was never going to live up to the expectations I set for it. And so far, it has passed all of them, and then some. I think maybe my one fear, and I don't know, I haven't gotten to talk to anybody who wasn't really familiar with the original games, who played through it, and maybe you'll be able to if you go through story mode on your own. There are some bosses where the way to beat them, like, might be foreign if you've never played the games that came beforehand. And that's like,
maybe it's all based on the mechanic of punch, right? Like,
yeah.
So I mean, like,
well, there are some that aren't based on the mechanic of punch, and I just remember Ashton, I mentioned him earlier, someone I used to play the Ninja Turtle game with, being like, this is how you have to beat the boss. And I'm like, no, this is what you do, and this is how you damage him. And we got into a 7-year-old fight because we were 7 years old. It didn't last for 7 years, about how you beat a certain boss in Turtles in Time. And then I wonder, is that something that, like, did I know it because of nostalgia, and will that nostalgia necessarily translate to somebody who maybe never played the games as deeply as I have?
Well, now I'm intrigued, because like I mean, like, I have to imagine that, like, look, there's only one or two things my character can do, so I have to punch something.
Yeah.
And if it's not that, then I'm very intrigued.
Yeah, so I'm curious to see that thing. Like, it's preemptive fear that there might be just too much nostalgia dependency on beating this one boss.
Maybe.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, like, that's kind of the bigger aim of the project. Bringing new people in is definitely like a plus, but their first and foremost is hitting those older audiences. So, you know, that's maybe not the worst sin it could commit, I guess, is what I'm saying.
No, I understand where you're coming from. Yeah, because if I were unsatisfied, if I were coming here saying, this feels like garbage, this does not evoke the Ninja Turtles, everybody should boycott this game because they just slapped the license on it, which, again, that's me playing a character. None of that is true. Everything that I just said, flip it and reverse it for my actual feelings. If that's not clear, like 40 minutes into this Ninja Turtles discussion, that would be more detrimental to the project than the fact that if the people who remember the game fondly and are buying it on those memories are able to be like, I was 5 years old again.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's the big one. And that, I mean, I gotta tell you, that playthrough Thursday night until 1 a.m. I didn't go to sleep until 3 a.m., which feels appropriate with any Ninja Turtles game. I haven't been asleep before 3 a.m. since the game released. I've just been staying up till 3 a.m. And then it's 3 a.m. and I'm like, oh, Big Apple, 3 a.m. And I go to bed.
Time to go to bed.
It's been wonderful. And it's a great way to kick off the summer of fun at the Say Report for me. And I hope that Sejan has enjoyed his time with it too.
I have. It's been a blast.
Excellent. Anything else that you want to add, Sejan, or are we
still going strong with Miss Marvel and still can't have to just keep recommending some of the stuff that I talked about last week, where I feel like we talked about how I rightly think that there is some really good criticism to be made about the way that her move sets have been changed, her power sets and all that, but I do think that the story is really going to lean into kind of exploring how her heritage and possible Inhuman, they haven't said the word yet, but possible heritage as an Inhuman is affected by those things. Rather, I think they're going to be doing more justice to this stuff than people have given them credit for. And that was more apparent even in the second episode, is all I'm getting at. So just going still strong with that, and again, the style of that show is just phenomenal. Also, I think we talked about this. It's 6 episodes, right? Like it's like, so next week, this coming week is going to be halfway through that story. And so I'm hooked. But yeah, excited to just kind of see Strange this week. I guess I maybe am challenging myself to try and get through Morbius first. But other than that, man, I'm just going to keep playing Turtles. I'm going on vacation this week with the family, and I'm bringing the Switch along with me so that we can all play some Turtles.
Wonderful. I hope that everybody enjoys it and they don't feel like they're being held hostage by you. By the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. That also seems like a good thing, where the Turtles go bad and hold people hostage. All about that world. So I will say this. I have watched the first episode of Miss Marvel. The one thing I'm going to say about this episode is I love seeing Matt Lintz do the reverse Adam Sandler trajectory, starting in an Adam Sandler film and then going to Disney.
Yeah.
Because he's from Pixels, if people don't know that. I don't think normal people would know that. People who don't do a dedicated Adam Sandler podcast being normal in this scenario. And after the midpoint, I think that next episode we'll probably have a deeper discussion about Miss Marvel.
Cool.
So that's something to look forward to as well. If you would like to play Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and you're on the Switch, reach out to Sejan at Siege versus the World. He's looking for people to partner up with.
And if you want to make the effort to get into a physical space with people to play the game, sounds like Devon is putting together a little bit of a challenge room, so you can reach out to him at Devon D. Decker.
Oh, if I could do like a turtle convention where everybody gets together and plays the Ninja Turtle game, I would be all about it. I am excited for the future of Shredder's Revenge, and keep an eye on this space, well, an ear on this space, to hear all about the crazy things that we're going to be doing with it. All right, Will, that's enough. Please bring us home. You have a good one, ladies and gentlemen. Peace. Hey, ladies and gentlemen, Devon Decker and Sejan here again.
Hey, I'm here too, yeah.
You're supposed to be hearing Will right now, but as we promised, as soon as we finished recording, we jumped into Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Shredder's Revenge.
Surprise.
To test the theory that if somebody completes story mode before, like, just completes the final level of story mode, that is the only real requirement to unlock Casey Jones. And Sejan, do you want to share the good news with the people?
Yeah, it works. You team up with a buddy that's gotten through. If you're having some trouble and you want to check out the character, you could just jump on with somebody. Can't wait till they patch that one out.
Yeah, seriously, if you're an achievement hunter, all the things like just doing the final level will unlock endings for you to get those achievements, or any of the other stuff that's out there. Make sure you're doing it now. So that's the other thing. So we said that other stuff, but if you have, well, really any of the systems, and you just want to unlock Casey Jones, and you need someone to jump into story mode with to do it, you can find me on Twitter at Devon D. Decker.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I only own it on the Switch, and I have parental controls on my Switch that my girlfriend takes care of for me. Sorry, guys.
Weird reflex and reveal at the end of this bonus bit of content. All right, without further ado, here's Will apologizing to your moms.
I can't be trusted!
Thank you for listening to the Say Report with your host Devon Decker and Stephen Selwick. Please follow the guys on Twitter and Facebook by searching for The Say Report, and you can always subscribe on your podcast channel so this is delivered straight to you and you can enjoy it every week. With apologies to your mother, we'll see you next time.